forward to the dialogue. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat or the comments as a part of this, and I'll be happy to talk through it. Today, again, for a lot of the conversation, for me at least, I want to try to help anybody out there who's, again, trying to find ways to accelerate deals. And for me, I think one of the big issues, at least that I see as a part of kind of the world that we live in, is a few different things. One is that we have this mindset right now that, obviously with the economy slowing down, et cetera, that, wow, things are going to get more difficult, et cetera. The reality is one of the big issues that I see in particular is it's more of a mindset that right now we have a mindset that all sales behave the exact same way. We've got a mindset that for many people, it's like I put everyone through the same process. I put everyone through the same customer experience or customer journey, et cetera. So for me in particular, I think one of the things that I think is kind of top of mind is this concept. And I'm going to drop this in if you guys want to check it out later, which is, let me just drop it into the chat here, which is this concept of intent-based sales. And the whole point of this in particular is actually a pretty simple idea, okay? As a part of this, that it's a pretty simple concept, which is when people are we need to first understand people's intent level before we can understand what they want to buy or how they want to buy. So what's going on, Philip from the UK? Yeah, that's right. We did catch up a little bit ago. So yeah, I'm happy to connect. So I think for anyone out there, as a part of this, I want more and more people to think about this concept, intent-based sales, right? And what goes into it. And what goes into individuals and us treating people with a certain level of intent based on how they're coming to us versus this one-size-fits-all mindset. Martin, I see you, man. I don't know what you want to talk about with that. I'm happy we can do another LinkedIn Live and we can talk about that for sure, because that's a for real issue. I think when I think about, just to address it real quick, it's, I don't know, man. I don't know your experience, but would be happy to chat about it and try to come up with some ways that we can help. Right. So anyway, the bias right now. I mean, look, like I said, I'm happy to talk about it sometime, in terms of like what it means in terms of like people's bias toward different types of employees. I can only speak for our own organization and what we do versus generalizations about everybody else. Right. And what we try to do to make sure that we have an inclusive culture, that we eliminate biases, because it is a very, very, very real thing, especially in sales, where we tend to kind of look for people that think and act like us and look like us. So I can tell you it's a very real thing, Martin. So I don't want you to feel it's a thing, and we'll talk about it. It's very real, very, very real. And again, as a white male, I think it's one of those things where there's many white male leaders who, some is conscious, and that's the real fucked up stuff. But many times there's also unconscious where they're just like, oh, I thought this was a persona of the person that, that looks like me. And so I think there's a lot of unconscious bias in hiring in particular. So we could do a whole episode on that. And I'll invite some other friends to join me for that. So back to sales cycle processes. Okay. So again, appreciate it, Martin. And definitely it's real. So sales cycles right now, one of the big issues consistently, more and more and more that I'm seeing, is this concept that we don't want to do is we don't want to treat each customer or prospect differently. That what happens is someone comes into the buying cycle. We say, okay, one size fits all. You got to have a conversation with this person, then this person, then this person, then this person. And as a part of that, what ends up happening is customers hate it. More and more people, it's like, we don't want to put up with that. If I'm coming to you, and I'll do a quick screen share here because I've got some different ideas here I can share, is one of the biggest issues that's missing from the sales process today that Medic doesn't address, that BANT doesn't address, that none of the frameworks address, is what level of intent does someone have right now, right? So again, I want you to think about that as the concept for today, right? Similar to how you buy in your business to consumer behavior, okay? when you buy in business to consumer, okay, you don't want friction. You don't want to talk to a person. You don't want to talk to, you just want to click. And if it can't get shipped to you in the next day, then you go click something else. And so I think for a lot of people out there that we have to realize that everything in the business to consumer world ends up happening in the business to business world. And so if you think that customers and buyers are really, really going to want to, let's call it, I don't know. Let's call it, you think that they want to like talk to people up front. They don't. There are certain cases where they do, but hey, it's not everyone. Okay. So what is this, right? And I'm going to do a quick screen share here because we've started to do more and more work on this. So give me one sec. Ooh, what's this new one? There we go. Picture-in-picture layout. Okay, that's new. Share my screen. Can I not share my screen? Well, maybe I'm not going to share my screen. It's weird. Usually there's a little screen share thing. But anyway, I can just drop it in. There it is. I just had to scroll down. Share screen two. All right. So this is how we think about, let me make this a little bit bigger, is intent level. Okay. So think of these three types of ways that people can find you. Okay. And I'll drop these into the chat too, so you can have them. It'll be kind of long, but hey, it could be helpful. There we go. All right. So think of these different ways that people come in. One, I call these people vetted. Vetted are people that take the time to do their own research. They've already gone, they probably talked to a couple other people. I define it as, they've already met with a competitor or reviewed their offering. They've researched your offering via peer or online. They have an understanding of pricing, have a clear business outcome they're looking to achieve, clear timeline, and they've defined the evaluation process. So just think of that there's more and more people today that are vetted. These are people that come inbound with super high intent. And again, I'll go back to it. How does your sales process deal with these people? Do you treat everybody the same? Is it like, oh yeah, so this person has to go talk to an SDR and then go talk to this person and then go talk to this person, right? Or do you treat people differently based on the level of intent or vetted, right? Then you have educated, right? These are people that should have researched your offering. They have a clear business outcome. They have a timeline, right? These are people like, yeah, look, we know that we need a solution here, right? And so for me, I think as I think about this, and then there's cold, right? Which is like, we haven't done much of this. As more and more people start to first interact with you via vetted, via educated, we have to change the way that we interact with buyers, period. Right. And so for all of you out there, here, I'll just drop this in the chat real quick. Martin, of course. This is a very long, so just know that in advance. So again, I think if you're thinking about your current process today, how many of you, and I'd love to do this, go ahead, you can raise your hand, etc. How many of you today have a different process for the way different people want to buy, right? How many of you? You can kind of raise your proverbial hand, etc. How many of you have a different process? What we're consistently finding is nobody, right? More and more people want to understand and interact with people that get it, right? And more people, again, salespeople, though, the issue that I see is consistently what we're not doing is we are not actually doing a good enough job of understanding some of these things. So I talked through first here, like what is intent-based sales? Okay, so intent-based sales, this concept that people are coming to you already with either low, medium, or high intent. I call those people either vetted, educated, or cold. Okay, and how this is different than traditional lead scoring. Okay, traditional lead scoring, what it says is based on a certain number of actions, someone downloaded a white paper, which you will notice that I did not include in someone's level of education is downloaded a white paper. You know what else I didn't include? Attend a webinar. My friends, attending a webinar or just someone downloading a piece of content does not equal intent. Run that back. Somebody Downloading a piece of content one time or attending a webinar, it does not equal intent, right? And you can't tell that from a form fill. You can't tell, hey, that they've already researched your competitor. You don't know that. You can't tell that they actually, talk to a friend of theirs in a Slack chat and ask 50 questions about your product already. And so now they're ready to have a serious conversation. The friend already told them about pricing as well, too. So again, for anyone out there, I would really, really think through what you're calling intent. Okay. Is it something somebody's downloading? No. Instead, it's questions. So next question people usually have for me is, okay, Jake, how do you do this? So the first part is the questions that we ask before the meeting, right? And so I think somebody dropped in there, like, people don't want homework. Here's what I'll say. You're right. Most consumers, I don't want homework. But if you tell me, Jake, if you take a look at this thing or you do this before the meeting for a minute and a half or 2 minutes, it's going to help us to really expedite and speed up the first conversation. I'm going to do that all day long. So although people don't necessarily want homework, if you can help me to understand what's in it for me, why should I do a little bit of research? So then that way your team is only interacting with people that are in the educated space, which candidly is all they should be interacting with. If someone is still at that cold state, again, where it's not a top 5 priority, they are not even sure, there's not a lot that sales can do as a part of it, right? So again, for a lot of people, I think it's really important for you to just think through that mindset. Like, think through, what is my first touch point? And can I try to get someone to that educated status or that vetted status before I even meet with them? Most consumers, if they understand what's in it for them, are willing to invest a few minutes in preparation if they know what's in it for them. Not just sending out some link and saying, oh, hey, check this out before a meeting. I'm archiving that. I'm just going to be honest. If I have a meeting with you and you just say, Jake, fill this out before the meeting or take a look, I'm just going to automatically hit archive. Now, on the flip side, you say, Jake, I want you to fill this out for me because XYZ. I want you to fill this out for me because if we do this, we can probably cut the meeting to 15 minutes. Great. So I spend 2 minutes to get 15 minutes of my time back. So I would just think that our job in sales is to try to get more people from cold to educated and then educated to vetted. Vetted people are the people that are actually going to move the needle. One of the things that I was very specific to call out when we put together this framework is vetted does not mean that they are a decision maker. We are obsessed with this concept of somebody who's coming into the intent funnel that they have to be a decision maker. They don't. Almost zero companies actually make decisions in a vacuum, to where the decision maker is the person who actually has all the power and authority. It doesn't usually work that way. Usually there's that person, sure, but there's 15 people below that person that could say no at any given time. And so if you over focus on the decision maker, you're screwed. If you over focus your time there because you didn't spend enough time with these other people that were vetted, many times a decision maker is going to go send someone to go do the initial research. Not that you can't, not that it can't be, important to want to have them in the process. I'm just saying you don't necessarily need them in the process, right? But lots of times decisions are made without the decision maker ever being a part of it. It's just how people buy today. Okay. What's up, Steven? All right, good. I'm glad it's resonating. Okay. So now where the rubber meets the road. Rubber meets the road. Rubber meets the road. Okay, which is, how do you do this? Okay, so Jake, I get it. Different people are coming in at different levels of intent. Okay, that makes sense to me. What the hell do I do about it? Okay, so I'm going to give you all some very, very clear tactics here. Okay, the first one I actually already talked about. The first one is try to move people to educated for the first meeting. And what goes into educated? It is research the offering. That's an easy one. They have a clear business outcome. That would be good. And they have a timeline, right? Or again, it could be some of these other ones that I haven't vetted. So that's number one, is that anybody who's coming in cold We should try to get too educated before we meet with them. How many of you actually do this? How many of you actually have a process by like where you educate people coming in? Right? I see a lot of companies don't have anything. I see a lot of companies have like little to no process around educating people before they come in. And what ends up happening then with those people is again, they get on, then they do a qualification, and you basically just increased your sales cycle. So why we titled this, shrink your sales cycle, is if you are consistently not trying to get people educated or do anything in between meetings, your sales cycle is going to be weeks or months longer than it needs to be. Like I said, most buyers, if you help them to understand what's in it for themselves, will go and spend a few minutes before a meeting if it's going to save them time or really be worthwhile. But don't just send stuff and say, hey, it'd be great if you could take a look. Like be smart about it. Okay, number 2 is questions. Okay, 2, first questions. Questions should establish intent. That's number 2. Okay. First questions should establish intent. Okay. What do I mean by that? Let me tell you this. This is a bad question. Okay. People say there aren't there aren't such things as bad questions. I would say that there's ways that you can phrase things poorly that will not get you the answers that you want. So we can call it a bad question or not. If you say, great, how much do you know about us? Doesn't really tell me much, right? So instead of kind of leading with the like, well, tell me what you know about us. Tell me if you've had a chance to do XYZ. Don't ask that question. Instead, ask questions that get them to demonstrate what they know. Ask them questions that make them talk. So instead of saying something like, how much do you, or, have you done any research? How much do you know about us? Those are too vague. Let's go back to what I know matters most, right? Which are some of these vetted criteria. Have they looked at a competitor? Have they researched us? Do they have an understanding of pricing? So again, all of these are questions that I don't need to necessarily directly ask. Instead, I can ask smarter questions that might actually get me the nuances or the details that I want. So I will give you some examples here as a part of this. For anyone who's listening, this is something you could literally bolt on to either your pre-discovery. So again, you could send it in an email, or you can bolt this into your actual like first conversation. So again, instead of launching into, hey, what are you doing today for XYZ in your product? Instead, lead with this. Hey, John, I'm working with lots of VPs of operations who all handle different parts of the business. So first, I want to understand, kind of your role in like the day-to-day of XYZ topic. So I'm going to start with their role. Well, why do I need to know their role? Because I need to know the departments that are involved, because I know my typical buying circle. So after I ask my role-based questions, before jumping into what are your top challenges or business priorities, which is still a great question, I'm going to go into, great. So, okay, so it sounds like as a VP of operations, you handle this, you do this, you do this. Great. Okay, so coming into the conversation today, right now, have you all started to actively evaluate alternatives? And tell me a little bit about where you're at in that process. Nope, Jake, we're at the very beginning stages. Okay, great. So have you all had an opportunity to go and, again, review competitors? Have you had a chance to, I think Gong did a study. It's like, I think 50% higher close rate. Maybe it's Todd Capone. It's either Todd Capone and Transparency Sale or Gong. But it's something like 50% higher close rates when people actually talked about the competition in the first call. I'll try to find it, or someone else can Google it and drop it in the chat. That'd be helpful too. So again, think about it that way. Think about, again, I need to know where this person's at. It's okay if they're talking to the competition. I think a lot of reps want to run and hide when they hear that. They're like, oh, they're talking to the competition. Okay, well, great. Well, okay, like, great. That means they're like actively looking to make a purchase. So after I understand who I want to meet with or who I'm meeting with, right? And again, they don't have to be a decision maker, just who they are, who are the players that are involved. Then I want to understand where they're at in their evaluation process. And I'm going to ask very specific questions. Competition, pricing, amount of research, budget. Have they set aside? Like, again, there's ways to very succinctly ask these questions that don't come across as either an interrogation or that come across as like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm providing you the right details based on where you're at now, right? So again, I'm not doing this with the guise of trying to qualify somebody. I'm doing this to understand what intent level they're at. I'm not trying to qualify them. It just is what it is. If they've started to do X, then they might be more likely. If they've started to look at some of these processes, then they're probably more likely to, want to do something, right? So I think, again, for a lot of you out there, like hearing this, you have to ask questions today to understand intent. And that today, our ability, and McKinsey had done a study here too. This would be another one someone could easily, what do you call it? I guess like Google. But I remember a few years ago, McKinsey did a study. And what was, I think, the most eye-opening about it was people, like customers preferred speed over purely price, like 25. I can't remember what the number was. It was a pretty decent amount. And I was like, wow. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. I remember seeing that stat. I think it was at Dreamforce. It had been like 2018 or 19. So understand, customers want to go. And as we get trained more and more and more at this click to buy mindset, that's what they want. They want speed. Okay, Jake, let me understand where you're at so I can get you to the right person as fast as humanly possible. As opposed to, the ironic part of all of this is many times us as sellers are artificially dragging things out when people are like, no. I've done all these things. Can we just go to step 3, please? As opposed to like, I got to talk to this person, then I got to do this, then I got to do X, Y, Z. So for all of you, kind of my homework here, and I've got some housekeeping stuff I will jump into. First thing is, so we are doing all these LinkedIn lives under this kind of new umbrella. So maybe you've noticed this, maybe you haven't, but under this modern leader umbrella. So basically every Monday, most Mondays, some Tuesdays, I'm going to be doing a live talking about a modern topic around leadership in particular. So if you want, you can actually sign up for the newsletter on LinkedIn, which is below. So feel free to go ahead and sign up. If you sign up for by the way, we're not selling classes or anything, so it's just free to sign up. There's no there's no group that I'm going to hit you up with and ask for $20 or something. But this is just, again, me talking about trends, things that we're seeing in leadership. So make sure to subscribe to those. Also, a couple other quick things. We have 2 events coming up. One is actually an in-person event, right? If you all remember that. If you are in Chicago, and I think we've got Atlanta, Miami. I know we've got a whole bunch of stuff planned for later this year. Doing a virtual event with the CEO of Speckit and friend Nikki over at Outreach. And then we are going to be in Chicago next Thursday for our outbound happy hour. So this is for all of you. If you are in sales, you're in a sales development, whatever, frontline manager, definitely come check it out. We're trying to do a lot more community-based stuff. So, trying to build more of a real place where you can go and meet and network. There will be free alcohol and food too. So, it could be fun to network with some other sales folks. So we've got this kind of modern leader community that we're trying to build. We've got the modern seller community that we're really working to build. And, like I said, you're going to continue to see more and more content for it. So to sign up for the modern leader, I just dropped it into the chat. Make sure to you can either subscribe on LinkedIn if that's easier for you, or sign up as a part of it. And then the next piece would be, if you're in Chicago, come check us out next week or sign up for this event as well. So again, I'm going to leave you all with some kind of parting thoughts and wisdom. Well, you can decide if it's wisdom or not. In 2022 and beyond, okay, in 2022, 2023, right? Think about how you buy in your everyday life. Just think about that. That's all you got to do. Just think about, how do you buy in your everyday life? Now, for those of you who are in sales or thinking about it, right? Yes, Martin, 100%. Speed, that's what we want. How many of you have picked an item in Amazon, and then the last week, maybe last week or 2 weeks, have then selected another item because that item wasn't going to get there soon enough? How many of you? How many of you in the last week picked a different item, could have been slightly lower quality item, just because it would get to your house faster? Guilty, right? Any type of purchase, I'm always looking for that free Prime delivery. But how many of you, I'm curious, right? And so when I talk about these topics, okay, I want all of you to just think logically. Okay. You don't have to believe everything that I'm saying, but just think about yourself as a consumer. And if you just did that behavior, if you already behave that way, do you not think that the way that you want to buy in your professional life is going to be the same? Of course it is. How many of you, I'm telling you, if you don't think that people are just going to click to buy $30,000 pieces of software, you're not paying attention to where the needle is going. Okay. People want different. It's not that we're going to eliminate salespeople. There's still going to be, but it's when the salesperson gets involved is what we really need to think about. Again, is there some type of education or level of intent raising we can do very early to get people up those? So then by the time they talk to us, again, it's not that they're qualified. We've got to change this whole qualification mindset, right? It's that they actually have, they get to that level to where I, as a rep, can actually make a big difference. And then look, some people just want to click to buy. I had I've told this story before. I'll tell it real quick. I had the worst experience ever with Salesforce last year. It was the very end of the year. We were trying to make some purchases at the very end of the year. And we didn't know who our rep was. We reached to support. It took us 2 or 3 days to get to the right person. Then the kid's like, hey, can we hop on a call? I'm like, no, we cannot hop on a call. I'll hop on a call with you in like 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm out and I'm trying to get this deal done before, so I can kind of unplug for the rest of the year. And this is where it got crazy. He says, okay, I'm going to send you a PDF that you have to fill out and send back to me. This is Salesforce. There's no place for me to buy Salesforce. And by the way, it was a $40,000 purchase. I wanted to just run my credit card for 40 grand. I'm like, dude, just run it. Like, please. I had to fill out a PDF and send it back to him. My friends, if you don't think that that is an atrocious experience, and look, I don't expect everyone to be like me and it's like, I want to self-service and not talk to anybody, but more and more people are going to continue to behave that way. And if your organization does not have an intent-based part of your discovery process, you are missing out on fast-tracking 25+% of people that are already at that educated or vetted stage. But instead, you're moving them at the same snail's pace as everybody else. So sit on that for a second. Go reflect. And, anybody who's trying to go check out like the things that, I dropped some links in there too around intent-based sales and some other things I've talked about. But just go audit your own process. That's really my big homework item here is everyone go audit your own customer journey and just see, hey, do we have a way when people are at a higher intent to fast track them? And if you don't, develop one now. Because if not, the people that are going to win in the future are the people that get this, are the people that are like, okay, yes, okay, like let's go faster. Like, and don't try to put up a bunch of fake barriers just because that's what I want as a part of it. So appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on another amazing Monday. Appreciate all of the comments, the chatter. Martin, appreciate you joining. For sure. Philip, Steven, everyone else who joined, glad to have you. And again, go back, audit your process, and just think, do you have a way to deal with people that want to move faster, or are you trying to jam everyone through the same qualification mindset?